All right, so we're back this week working on the 748. What we're going to do is we're going to change the oil, change oil filter, obviously. We got a new battery. Now, fingers crossed on this one because this is like a $30 battery on Amazon. So we're going to test that out for you, and there'll be a link in the description for all this stuff. Also, the fuel lines that were for the breather, I got to thinking about it. I don't think that those were rated to be the fuel tank either. So we're going to change those out with this PVC. All right, so here's the bike. So what we need to do is get I'm not sure if we're going to take the gas tank back off, but we need to get the fuel pressure gauge off, get everything all lined back up, and then I did cut the fuel lines a little bit long, so we need to make sure that they're not being kinked because that might have been what happened last time. So for now, we're going to get the fuel tank sorted, and then we will change the oil. We'll also change the brake fluids and the clutch fluids as well, so stay tuned for all that. Just like that, she's off. All right, so another way you can mark your lines if your masking tape is not sticking, just take some tie wraps, and I have some cheapy tie wraps right here. It just helps out that they're red, and since there's only a line in and a line out, and you want to make sure that you put it back on the right one. So this is where the fuel pressure gauge was hooked onto. So now it's off, and then we'll just unhook this return line and everything should pop back off, and then we can get to working on the gas tank. All right, it's completely free. Just gonna take this, set it on its side. So remember, I didn't put that much gas into it. All of the gas should be kind of in this place. So I should be able to work on it without it dumping out because I didn't put like a ton in it. All right, so now I'm just gently prying with the screwdriver, just a little twisting motion. Not enough to hurt anything, just kind of working it out. Just like that. All right, so yeah, the PCV line seems fine. So it's these that I'm most concerned about. So I'm just going to take these off, and then we'll cut this to size and put that in. All right, so the gas in there still looks a little weird and suspect. I don't know if you can see the two different lines. So could still be some water, but there's definitely a bunch of floaties down there in the bottom, and so it doesn't clog anything. I think I'm going to go ahead and just suck that part out. Yeah, it definitely seems like we got two different fluids in there. Maybe it's water. Maybe we still had a bunch of water in there. But since we're already in here, it's good to get it out now. All right, thought I'd show you. Yeah, this is what's going on here. See how it's separated? Gas up here and what looks like water or something down there because it's pretty dark. So I think it's better if we just flush out the whole gas tank. Yes, I got the fuel lines off, and they were R7s. And from what we could see on the internet, that was not what it's supposed to be. You can also see, like right there, it's already kind of swelled up and split. So basically what would happen is if this was hooked onto your fuel assembly right there, and then if this causes a leak, it'll just start going out those breathers or into your charcoal canister, because I think that's one of the places it's hooked into. So we're going to cut this, and looks like we got enough. All right, so got these put into the top. That was pretty complicated and just fiddly. We tried not to drain all the gas if it didn't need it, so we got everything that looked a little bit wonky. So I'll shine the light back in here to see if there's anything else. So we're going to put this back in. These actually pop in pretty easily. Let's get all that in there. I'm just putting these clamps on so that they have a little bit more pressure on them. Because as you can see on this, there's no barb. There's no nothing for anything to bite into. So I'm not going crazy with these. I'm just going enough so that I feel like it's grabbing onto it as best as it can. Just so you can't, just pull it off. I'll do the same with the other side, and then we'll just put this back in. All right, she's all back together. Now we are going to focus on finally installing this, and I still have to find a screw for that, but we're going to at least get all the fuel lines and everything, get it plugged back in so that it looks a little bit better. Now it's time to hook everything on and to not have it want to be kinked. So I don't know if you guys remember, but last week I cut all this a bit long, because what you're looking for is like once it's like finally down, there's not a lot of places for this hose to actually go though. Like you would imagine that there'd be enough room for it to for you to lift up this gas tank, but it doesn't seem like there's a lot of room that way. So I think we'll try cutting it there and just slipping it on just to see what it looks like. You can see right here where it is just kinked and kinked. Yeah, I feel like we just got to go even shorter than that, which is going to make it really fun to get this on and off. So I'm just going to sneak up on it. We'll take off another inch. All right, that actually doesn't look too bad. Right there. So I'm feeling on the inside to see if it feels kinked at all. And it doesn't. It does feel like it's in a pretty precarious place to actually get it clamped down, but that feels good. So now let's worry about the other side. I feel like a little bit off of it for sure. Because of where it's sitting, it's almost sitting against this piece right here. So yeah, I think I'm going to cut off a little bit off of that piece. Not a lot. Maybe I'll start off with like 1/2 inch. So I feel like we're pretty close. And then let's make sure that the gas tank's all the way forward. Yeah, it just seems so odd that that gas line kind of pushes against this. And then once you finally get this down, it's like it goes underneath this. Maybe that's why it was all ripped up. All right, so I grabbed just a 9/16 combination wrench, and then I just put some leverage on this and kind of just bent it forward just slightly, and it feels a lot better as it goes in. And if you look down here, I don't have the hose on it yet, but it kind of clears everything as it goes in. So I feel like that's going to be a lot better. So now I'll do another dry fit. I'll put that guy on, and then we'll put this guy on, and we'll see how everything works. Setting everybody down. Oh yeah, so I think that that's definitely the way. So we'll put on the clamps. We'll put on the 2 breathers, and we'll hook up the whole wiring to this. And I think that's good until we can find a proper screw for that. All right, so everybody's on. They're all tightened up. This guy I did have to index a little bit because of this vent tube right here. So that one's on. So this male part goes into that female part right there. You gotta make sure that that is in. You almost wanna make sure that the whole front is seated in. And then you're gonna kind of let the back just relax in. And you can see right here, there's a giant hole right here, because I believe there's like a rubber grommet that goes right there, and then a bolt that bolts it in. But so that's all seated in, and then this kind of the seat just kind of hugs the whole back of it. All right, so that's the gas tank mostly installed until we get that one screw. We'll do everything the same way we did it before. We'll fill it full of gas, we'll cycle it through, we'll make sure, we'll leave the side fairings off. We'll cycle it through just to make sure that there's nothing leaking out of there. But now, I think we'll get on to the batteries and the fluid. All right, so we're gonna do the clutch master cylinder first. It is an 8mm, so I have the 8mm down here. First, we're going to open up the lid and we're gonna drain out all of the fluid. It'd be hard to get this little, there it is. Oh, yeah, we didn't need that, I guess. It's that little diaphragm that expands when you start using more and more of it. So, just gonna send this in here. Fluid doesn't look too horrible, but if we're replacing it and we're flushing it out, because you look at the brake master cylinder right there, that one looks pretty bad. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna fill that up with some new stuff. So this is .3, .4 brake fluid. So make sure you take a clean funnel. I'm gonna go at this slow because there's gonna be some in the funnel. I'm gonna unhook it from this vacuum line. You can use the vacuum line as well. I'm gonna hook this to there. Just gonna pump it up. Okay, now I'm gonna release. Okay, now I'm gonna close it. Keep double checking your fluid up here. You can give it a lot of pumps. Okay, now I'm gonna hold it and release. Okay, now I'm gonna close that back up. And now I'm gonna put more in here. You never wanna run that dry. If you run that dry, it's just gonna be a bad day. Because everything you've done up to that point is gonna be, you're just gonna have to do it over. You can just count how many times you wanna pump it. 1, 2, 3, get to like 10 or so. And then hold it. You're holding this, and then you're releasing this. Okay. And now you're closing this while still holding that. Okay. Now you're pumping this back up again. So one of the things you're doing, you're trying to get all the air bubbles out, but what we're actually doing right here is we're flushing all the old fluid out. It's amazing how much different the clutch actually feels. It feels stiffer. Yeah, it even feels like from this side, the clutch is moving more. So what's cool, if you go around to this side, as I'm pulling in the clutch, since this is a dry clutch, you can see it moving. So when we first started working on this bike, it felt like it was moving, I don't know, half that distance. So it actually feels pretty good now. So what I'm gonna do is tighten this off. Make sure it's nice and tight. Okay. Take that off. Put the cap back on. All right. And then up here, we're gonna put this diaphragm back on. Cleaning it off. Screw this back on. All right, everything works and everything feels really good now. It's amazing because this clutch felt pretty light before, but now it feels pretty heavy because it's moving more. So we flushed all the bad stuff out. So this is going to be the harder one because on this model, there's 2 Phillips screws and there's no way to get to them. So I think we got to actually take the reservoir off the bracket. So we might do the easier one first, which is the rear brake. All right, so we're on to the rear brake. Here's the rear brake reservoir. You can tell there's the maximum, there's the minimum, and it's below that and it's dark. So that'll go to here, and then the brake line will go all the way back to here. And the other side was 8mm. This side is 11. So we're gonna do the same process here. This one looks pretty gross, so I'm gonna at least wipe it out with a paper towel. Yeah, it's a little grody. Pour in some new stuff. And we're gonna overfill it almost instantly. Sometimes it helps to break it free first. All right, so it's broken free. So we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna pump. And then we're gonna hold. Okay, now we're gonna screw this back in. Definitely feels like air in the system. Remember, we were over full. Now we're down to there. And this, the inside of this isn't that big, so we are moving fluid. It's just not a whole heck of a lot of fluid, but it is pretty dark and gross. So keep in mind, you have the line that's going from here to the main brake master cylinder, and then you have this line going all the way, the swing arm all the way to there. So that's why there's so much. All right, so we're just gonna keep going at this, and then we'll bring it back in when we're done. All right, so after 20 minutes, this thing feels great now. I'm imagining that this wasn't even working, or it wasn't working well, that's for sure. So put the little dust cap back on. So we filled up the reservoir quite a few times. Now we will put it all back together. And the rear brake feels like rock hard and amazing. So now we are on to the front master cylinder. Okay, so for the front reservoir, you can either take off this windscreen and the whole front of the bike. I tried to take off the mount right here. This screw was like, nah. So I was able to get this screw off, and it feels like aluminum actually. So then if we just pry that out, I feel like we should be able to kind of just push this aside and then unscrew the top. So the front brakes actually feel pretty good, but this oil, or yeah, this brake fluid up here, it's really dark. So I'd rather just, while we're here, let's change it all out. All right. So we'll suck all that out, and then we'll start the whole process over. But I'll bring you back in after we're done sucking all that out, because the front's a little bit more complicated because there's two front calipers that we're draining at the same time. All right, got it all drained out. So you can see there's like a bunch of weird sediment in the bottom, or some kind of algae. We're just gonna try to wipe all that out as much as possible. That seems like it's happy right there. Sometimes it's good just to let it sit there for a while. Some of the air bubbles come back out. All right, so obviously the front brake is up here, and then the hose comes down and actually tees off right here. It goes between two calipers on both sides. So usually, generally, when you're bleeding brakes, the rule of thumb is to go to the furthest possible point. So the master cylinder is on this side of the car. So you usually want to start bleeding like on the passenger rear, and then slowly work your way up. So taking that into consideration, I think this caliper on this side is a little bit further away because the T's on this side and goes over here. So it's the same premise. We're going to pump, hold, release the pressure, and then as soon as this side's done, then we'll move to that side and do the same. We probably won't have to do it as much on that side as we do on this side, but that's all there is to it. All right, so we flushed the other side. Pretty gross. Feeling pretty good. So we're gonna flush this side. I don't think we're gonna need to flush as much. And it seems like this master cylinder moves a lot more fluid than the rear one. So we're just gonna keep doing what we were doing before. We're just pumping and then holding and then releasing and then tightening back up and then pumping, releasing, and then tightening back up. So you can tell that the fluid is already a lot clearer than how it was before. So I'll probably just keep flushing until we're at the maximum there, and we are good to go on the front at least. So after we're done with this, I'll just tighten everything back up and put it back together, but then we will go to change the oil, because you could look right here. The oil is like this really dark honey color. That's what makes me think it's original, so it's gonna be good to get that dumped out. All right, so we are finally gonna change the oil. I've seen worse, but we don't know how old it is. So I've wedged this pan underneath, and it is a 10 millimeter Allen key socket. And what's surprising, it still doesn't feel very tight in there. Oh, there it is. All right. See it draining out of there. Whoop. So this does have a magnet on it. So the oil actually doesn't look like I was thinking before. It doesn't look super old, but the problem is we don't know how old it is, or if it's the original oil, or I'd like to think it was changed, but we don't know. I'll get a big set of channel locks on this to break that free. So I just like a big set of channel locks. So I grab onto this. All right. Ooh. Whoa, a Ducati oil filter. This is not looking good that this was, unless he had it changed at the dealer. There's the Ducati part number. Wow. But we're gonna let this sit here and flush out before we put in the new stuff. I don't see any glitter in there. All right, so here's the K&N we're putting on, K&N 153. So what I like to do is get a little bit of the oil, put it around there. You always want to make sure that the old gasket came off. Never, ever, ever do you want to double up on gaskets. That'd be a bad day. And the other thing I like about these K&Ns is they have a nut at the bottom where you can just tighten them up. And then I cleaned off the plug. Looks all nice. You can actually see it again. Making sure there's nothing around the rim there. So you're not going to want to go crazy tight on this. Obviously, you don't want it to leak, but yeah, when you're moving the whole bike, you're usually pretty good. All right. So now we just got to fill it up with oil. I might leave this right here for now, just in case we get like a spillover. At least we'll catch it in something. But here's where you got to fill in from, right here. So as far as I remember, there's no dipstick on these. All right. So what you're looking for are these two lines right here. So when you fill it up, you want to be basically in between these two lines. Maybe a little on the high side. So keep in mind, our filter is relatively empty. You're going to suck up a lot of that when you first start it. So I would put in a funnel and slowly start filling it up. All right, so we got a funnel in. Now I would take your time with this because it fills up this funnel pretty quick. And then you'll notice that the line down there gets filled up. And then there's no way it took all the oil that it needs right there. So then it drops down. It's kind of like this give and take. It takes it and then it goes and then it takes and then it goes. So one thing you can do is while you're filling it up, you can double check to make sure that you don't have any oil leaks from your filter or for the plug you put in. So you can see it just go back and forth. Now, because the oil filter was relatively empty when we put it in, when we start it up, we're going to have to double check that, and the fuel level or the oil level will go really down. So you'll have to check the specs of your bike, but mine holds about 4 quarts and this is 5 quarts, so should be about a quart left. And in case you don't know, on most, if you hold this level, you'll see about where you're at. So I kind of need to be in about this range right here. All right, so before we do anything, hooked up some jumper cables. I don't think that there's enough gas in here to start it. I haven't put any more gas in, but I was thinking I can at least cycle it around. So you can see right there, I've kind of overfilled it. It's because the oil filter itself is not full. Well, that seemed to have turned on. So I'm at least gonna cycle it around. Well, apparently it was enough to start it. So that might not have been enough to actually get all the oil cycling around. All right, so that's probably plenty. And the bonus is there a bunch of like gas spewing out of everywhere. So I don't see that. So by me overfilling it, you can see that it's relatively where it should be, but you still have all the oil seeping back from the heads and stuff like that. So I would give it a minute to see how much it comes back up. One thing I also want you guys to see is like, look how much clearer that is currently compared to the like dark honey it was before. So I feel like it's pretty good. Maybe I'll start it up again to see if we can't cycle more oil through everything just to see. So then if you look at this, we're just above a quart right now. So we're probably pretty close to where we need to be because we've put in almost 4 quarts. All right, so now we're on to the battery. So let's get this old battery out. Everything's 10 millimeters, of course. So it does have a plug-in for a battery tender, and I will be using that as well. All right, so there's our battery. One of the heaviest points of the bike. Kind of feel like this should have like another mount or something. I don't know. Well, that's interesting. Is that like a spacer so you can use a different battery? All right, so the $37 battery, I've had it on a charger all night. So just making sure it could be topped off. All right, so freshly from the charger, here is the new $30-some battery. As you can see, it's the same size, same everything. So we'll pop it back in. Okay, so you gotta put these nuts in, and then we're putting back on our battery tender cable. All right, then here's our mount. So according to the listing, this battery is supposed to have 175 cold cranking amps. So I figure we'll see on that. All right, so it's back on there. So let's see. Does it have enough power to turn over the bike? Let's see. Fuel pump's on. Guess that's a yes. I think she's a runner. So that's a $30 battery for the win. All right, so I'm gonna put some gas in it. I'm not gonna put a lot. I'm just gonna make sure that the fuel pump is submerged. I'm gonna make sure that the gas tank is not leaking. Maybe a gallon, a little bit over a gallon. All right. Oh yeah, that looks pretty good in there. So what the goal is to just walk around, make sure it's not leaking. Even though we've already started it, just make sure it's not leaking. And then I'm gonna continue to cycle the fuel pump with the new battery. And then the next goal will be to start it up and let it fully warm up until the temperature gauge starts reading something. All right, so just smoking a little bit where some of the brake fluid got on there. I'm holding the throttle currently because it seems like it needs a little bit of gas to stay running. You can see it's idling at about 1,000. I'm hoping once it finally warms up, it'll idle on its own. But I'll check back in once it finally gets up to temperature. All Right, so we got the temperature. Looks like we're cruising at 140 right now, so that's pretty good. It's idling. All right, so we looked at everything. Nothing else is leaking. Radiator hoses are getting hot. Radiator's getting a little warm. So I think we're good to go to put on the side fairings. Kind of wrap this up for now. Still need the bolt right there, but I think it's time to see if it'll do a burnout. All right, so I hate to end off the week like this, but the Ducati stopped running. Not sure what it is. We sent a camera down into the gas tank and show you that footage now. And it was just coming out of that little tornado thing. And we were trying to rev it up, do a burnout for y'all. And now it wants to run. Well, now it did that where the fuel light came on and it just shut off. So it seems like there's still something going on here that we need to figure out. So I just cycled it, the fuel light turned off. Add the throttle. Fuel light came on. And so now it just shut off again. So something's going on here. I think we'll jump onto another project while I contemplate this one for a little while. Like, wanted to have a whole thumbnail of a big old smoking back. Nope, not this week apparently. Not in the cards. So I guess tune in for next time. And if you have any ideas of what's going on with this bike, put it down in the comments.